Let's dive right in. Today, we're not just learning about a topic, we're learning how to teach any topic. We're about to deconstruct this incredibly powerful and, honestly, surprisingly simple blueprint for explaining just about anything. And we found it in a place you'd never expect. You've been there, right? I know I have. You've got this idea that is just crystal clear in your own head. But when you try to explain it to someone, a colleague, a friend, whoever, it just falls flat. You get that polite nod, but you can see it in their eyes. It's that frustrating feeling when knowledge gets lost in translation. So where did we find the secret to fixing this? Well, it wasn't in some fancy business school or a tech conference. We found it in a set of teaching instructions for a high school science teacher in Lagos, Nigeria. Seriously, these notes were written for a biology class, but what's inside them is a total hidden gem, a universal framework for explaining just about anything to anyone. Alright, so the first part of this whole blueprint isn't a technique or some clever trick. It's a mindset. It's the absolute foundation that everything else is built on. Get this right, and you're already halfway there. This one sentence. This is pretty much the whole philosophy right here. It's all about empathy. You have to forget you are the expert for a minute. You have to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is hearing this for the very first time. You assume they know nothing. You start from ground zero. And this really shows you the ambition of this approach. The goal isn't just to help someone memorize a few facts for a test. It's to take a total novice, someone who feels completely lost, and literally guide them step by step, all the way to becoming an expert. We're talking about a genuine transformation. So the mindset is in place. You're ready to teach from a place of empathy. But how do you actually make these complicated ideas, click for someone? Well, that brings us to what I'm calling the relatability engine. Here's the secret sauce. Our brains are basically connection-making machines. We learn new, weird stuff by attaching it to familiar stuff we already understand. So the trick here is to break every big idea into tiny, bite-sized pieces. And for every single piece, you immediately connect it to a real-life example that the person can picture in their own world. And this is where the source material from Nigeria just shines. The examples aren't abstract or theoretical. They are things from everyday life for students there. Yam plants, goats, mosquitoes, mushrooms. These aren't just little pictures to make it cute. They are powerful mental bridges that connect the new, unknown concept to something they already know inside and out. Okay, check this out. It's a perfect example. The term autotrophic nutrition, that's just intimidating jargon, right? But if you reframe it as how a yam plant makes its own food from sunlight, boom, instantly makes sense. Same thing with heterotrophic nutrition. Sounds complicated. Why a goat has to eat the yam? Totally clear. This is how you turn confusing ideas into simple, concrete ones. So we have the mindset and we have the tool of using relatable examples. But how do you structure it all so it makes sense? Well, the blueprint gives us this brilliantly simple 4-step framework that you can use for pretty much anything you need to explain. The flow here is just so smart and logical. First, you define it. Plain and simple. What is this thing? Second, you hit the key features. What are its most important parts? What makes it tick? Third, you bring in those all-important relatable examples to show it in the real world. And finally, step 4, exercises. You let the learner actually try it themselves. It's a whole learning cycle from hearing to seeing to actually doing. But there's one more critical piece that's woven through all 4 of those steps, and that's practical application. At every single stage, a great explainer is always answering that silent question in the back of the learner's mind. So what? Why should I care about this? You have to constantly be connecting the dots back to their world. Okay, so you follow the steps. The person understands the concept. That's great. But how do you make sure it doesn't just go in one ear and out the other a week later? This final part of the blueprint is all about making knowledge actually stick. It's about going from just getting it to true mastery. The secret is right here. Think about it. We forget facts and figures all the time, but we remember experiences. The instructions demand that you bring energy, that you tell stories, that you make it interactive. And this isn't just about being entertaining, it's brain science. Our brains are wired to remember information that's tied to an emotion. When you make someone feel something, they remember. And finally, the learning doesn't stop when the class is over. The blueprint always ends with a take-home assignment. And look, this isn't busy work. It's a challenging but practical question that's designed to make the learner think for themselves and apply what they just learned to a totally new problem. This is what really cements the knowledge. So when you take a step back and look at all these pieces together, the mindset of empathy, the relatable examples, that 4-step structure, and the focus on making it stick, you realize this is so much bigger than a lesson plan for a science class. It's a universal blueprint for powerful communication, for explaining a new strategy to your team, for onboarding a new hire, for anything. So there you have it. This incredibly effective framework for clarity and connection. Well, it's yours now. You have the mindset, you have the tools, and you have the structure to help turn any novice into an expert. So the only question left is, what will you explain?